have the amendment available for distribution in both languages, but during the suspension it was agreed that we're ready to recommence. So where we left off, the debate was on the amendment proposed by Dr. Pawlowski, which was as follows: after the word immediately, that the motion be amended to read, reconsidered, and breast cancer screening, and consideration should be given to breast cancer screening being extended to women in their 40s, as this will, in the committee's opinion, help save lives. Okay, slightly different. Let me start that again. The amendment is to delete all the words after the word immediately in the motion and to replace them with the following: reconsidered and consideration be given to extending breast cancer screening to women in their 40s, as this will, in the committee's opinion, help save lives. Where we left off, Dr. Ellis had the floor, and so I recognize Dr. Ellis on the amendment.
Thanks very much, Chair. You know, certainly the concern I have with that is it's a somewhat watered-down version, and I think we should move to a vote on it as quickly as possible.
Monsieur Thériault, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, Mr.
Thériault, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we're running out of time, and I'd like to move this forward. I am in agreement with the motion for its basic content. Often we go into a committee and we come up with a report and we make recommendations, but I certainly understand that given the urgency of this matter, we are making a recommendation here today and intending to make it in the House, not necessarily providing a detailed report to cover all the arguments behind our recommendation. I'm not too worried that I'm not an expert. If we had to wait for experts to make recommendations, then no committee would be making recommendations. So that being the case, I agree to moving forward with this. We rarely see all witnesses holding such a clear, unanimous opinion and point of view, expressing a point of view so clearly. And I put all my questions. I got very clear responses from all witnesses, no ambiguity. That's why I agree with the grounds of our undertaking, even though it is an unusual approach at the end of a session to be bringing something of this nature before the House. But I have no problem with what I see before me right now, the wording. And indeed, I'm sorry, but on Mr. Pawlowski's motion, so I would return to the original motion. For the reasons that I provided, I'm perfectly comfortable making such a recommendation, even though I'm not an expert. It's quite clear that the committee is making its recommendation. We are not executing on this. The government may make what use it sees fit of our recommendation.
Mr. Hanley, please.
Yeah, I support the amendment, and I agree in principle with what Mr. Thériault is saying, and I want to make it clear again for the record that I would love us to all get to a consensus to make this unanimous so that we can express the urgency. I have no problem making the noise. I have no problem with the urgency of this, but I think we just have to respect the proper process. The minister doesn't direct the task force. Neither do we direct guidelines, or as politicians, we are not responsible for issuing guidelines. But we can ask the task force to consider to urgently review with a view to arriving at a recommendation of screening for women 40 plus. So I think the goal is to get there in an expeditious way. Hopefully we can all agree on that by following due process. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hanley. Ms. Zurillo, please.
Thank you. We're going to go to a vote. I was on the list for the other one, so we'll just go to the vote and then we can talk about.
Ms. Roberts is left. She was next. After Ms. Roberts is Mr. Naqvi.
Thank you very much, Chair. And this is a very important topic. It impacts a lot of women in this country. I think the mark of this committee has been to do thoughtful work, thoughtful analysis. I'm sure that we all agree on the recommendation that we will be making through the work this committee has been doing. I think what saddens me at this moment, by the original motion and the sub-amended motion, which I support, that we're basically writing the report through by one motion, and we're really missing the opportunity to capture pretty much the unanimous analysis that we received from some incredible witnesses. And I think the value in capturing and documenting the witnesses' testimony is getting missed by using the process that we're using and getting a more substantive document in front of the task force in their 60-day review period that has been extended as the minister have asked them to do so, by just basically having a 5-6 line set of recommendations. So that's my concern. I think that's what Mr. Hanley was referring to as well in terms of shortchanging the process. I don't believe in being loud for the sake of being loud when the being loud does not backed up, not substantiated by a rational thought process. I think being loud is far more effective when you can justify why you're being loud, and I think we're just missing that opportunity in terms of writing a report that analysts would have captured by hearing the kind of testimony. But in any case, I support the amendments that have been put forward, and so that we can really help ensure that we are moving forward with ensuring with protecting women's lives, lives of women, especially as we heard, who are racialized. I come from that background. I've just talked about the experience I went through with my mother, who's an educated woman. All of us are, but the kind of anxiety that we face as we worked through that process. But I think we should do so in a way that really is fitting of this parliamentary committee. Thank you.
Ms. Vecchio?
Read it, but I thought Sonia instead put up her hand, so.
Ms.
Sorry.
Sidhu? Ms. Sidhu?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with the proposed amendment. We heard Mrs. Azarilo's testimony, and thank you, Ms. Goodrich, your work. And we all agree that my mom is also fighting with cancer. We have so many, we also, members are agree with the amendments. But we also heard the testimony, so I know this is not how we are writing the reports. I would like to remind members opposite what we have, how we are writing another reports. Also, we are discussing in FIVO too, and where we're going to listen even more witnesses, and then we can come up with I think a more exclusive report. This is something I want to urge, and then if we are agree with everyone, we have same views, why cannot we listen more witnesses? This is just my urge to the committee.
Okay, I believe the speakers list is now exhausted, so we're ready for the question. The question is on the amendment proposed by Mr. Pawlowski. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The amendment is defeated. We're now on to the main motion as presented by Ms. Goodrich. Ms. Zarillo, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion today, and I do appreciate the motion put forward in relation to fast-tracking this. Some of the previous discussion that we just had reminds me of the 2 years that I had to fight my own healthcare provider to try to get heard and seen. And I feel a sense of some of the underlying messages that the Liberal Party was trying to send, that asking for women's health to be prioritized, asking for women's health to be seen in the House of Commons is not rational. And I fundamentally object to that. So I do have an amendment that I would like to move today, and I hope it can be unanimous. I know that the health minister has already put forward directives on the draft recommendations from the task force. The health minister has a lot of power to ensure that women are seen, and I hope that we can move quickly on this and actually finally be at a point where women are seen in the healthcare system and by this government. So I have two amendments. One is guidance and following up to what my bloc colleague had to say about how many witnesses spoke today about their concerns. So after the wording deeply concerned by the task force's guidelines, I would like to amend that we add comma, and so were the majority of witnesses. And then after the wording as this will help save lives, to add and that the Minister of Health direct the task force to go back to the drawing board and revisit the guidelines based on the latest science, and that the Public Health Agency of Canada table to this committee the parameters given to the task force to update breast cancer screening guidelines. And I'll just remind the committee that the health minister did say, with the additional $500,000 that was given to this task force, that his expectation was that the report would be based on the current science. Thank you, Mr. Speaker,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
I just want to make sure that we have your amendment. From what I heard, it appears that your amendment is in order. So this is, yeah. So just give us a minute to distribute it, and I have Dr. Pelosi and Ms. Goodrich to speak to it.
I'd like to see the amendment before I speak to it.
Yeah, I think we all would. So that's happening as we speak.
Mr. Chair, point of order. I'm ready to speak to it.
Dr. Pelosi is next, and he's asked to see it. So we're going to respect that, and it's not going to take much longer.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that he is next. We have provided this to the clerk. I do have a printed copy for all those in the room. We have very limited time. I believe that this is a very common sense, reasonable proposal that's been put forward by Ms. Zerillo. It's clear that some members are looking to filibuster, and frankly, this is women's lives on the line, and so I'm just asking that we can move to a vote so that we can have some movement forward on this very important topic for women and all Canadians.
We won't be moving to a vote until the speaker's list is exhausted. It's been sent. Dr. Pelosi, I believe you should have the amendment now. You're on mute. So this. Dr. Pelosi, please go ahead.
I suggest that I'm going to Layla first while I read it. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Goodrich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe that this is the result of working across party lines, and I want to thank MP Zarrillo for working with both myself and Monsieur Thériault pour trouver une motion et une amendement.
To find a motion and an amendment that truly is responsive to the needs of Canadians.
You talk out the clock on this. We have a handful of minutes left. I'm pleading with committee members to just allow us to get to a vote.
Okay, we actually have resources until 2:30, and so a motion to adjourn can be presented at any time before 2:30, but if there isn't one, that's when we're going to cut off the meeting. Mr. Nakvi, Dr. Pelosi, and then Dr. Hanley.
Thank you very much, Chair. The challenge I have with the amendment that been presented is that it is asking the minister to do something that the minister just does not have the power to do so. And I'm challenged that we approve a motion that is outside the scope of ministers' authority to do so. In particularly, the part that it says that the Minister of Health direct the task force to go back to the drawing board and revisit the guidelines based on the latest science. The minister does not have that authority to do that. I want to highlight for the committee that the minister has taken some very important steps in order to address this issue. And he did so the day the draft guidelines were issued by the task force. Among the steps he's taken, he has highlighted his serious concerns about the task force findings and have encouraged all leading experts on breast cancer to carefully review the draft guidelines and to provide their feedback to the task force during their consultation period. He have also called for an extension of the public consultation period from 6 weeks to a minimum of 60 days. So there is that sufficient time, that ample time for that to happen. Secondly, he's also asked the Chief Public Health Officer to convene a meeting of senior provincial and territorial officials and key experts to review the guidelines in order to share their best practices as well, which is an important step because, as we know, the delivery of healthcare takes place at the provincial and territorial level. Furthermore, the minister has also noted that in the task force has identified some important research gaps and uncertainties, and there are steps that he has outlined in order to meet those gaps. But lastly, the minister has also asked that the Public Health Agency of Canada accelerate the launch of the external expert review that will examine the processes of the Canadian Task Force on Preventative Healthcare and provide recommendations to improve the process of the task force so that we don't run into the similar issues in the future. And I think that's a really important step that the minister has taken because PHAC funds the task force, doesn't direct the task force, nor the minister directs the task force, but we need to make sure that if there are some systemic challenges in the manner in which this task force operates, as I think we are all seeing in this process, let's make sure that moving forward we don't run into this. So it's really to me the challenging part has been that we are seeing a motion that's being debated right now that is asking to do something that the minister does not a capacity to do it. But again, I think we all want to move forward with this. We want to make sure that that if this is the will of the committee that we just move by way of a simple motion, then we should do so. But I think we should do so in a responsible way, in a way that is within the due process as the process works. So I do suggest and move that we just, instead of using the word direct in the motion, which says direct the Minister of Health, that we change the word direct to urge the Minister of Health. I think that change will allow the minister to do something that he is able to do and he has already spoken to, as opposed to asking him to do that he does not have as the authority to do so. This is a really important issue. This is an issue that is personal to so many Canadians. It's personal to members of this committee, including myself. This is not a political or partisan issue, and we need to make sure that we move in a way that is, again, fitting of this committee, and as has been said, and I agree with the members, so that Canadian women know that we are doing our work in a thoughtful and responsible way by making sure that their health is front and center. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have a sub-amendment to substitute the word urge for the word direct contained in the amendment. The sub-amendment is in order. The debate is on the sub-amendment, and the speakers list resets. Is there anyone? Dr. Ellis?
I think it's a bad idea. Let's get to the vote.
Dr. Pelosi is got his hand up. Go ahead, Dr. Pelosi. You have the floor.
Yeah, I'm speaking to the sub amendment, but through the sub amendment of the original motion. But I've got to say I am unhappy with the fact that my initial amendments weren't accepted. I think that was a good compromise. I think this motion, as it presently stands, is basically an attempt by a committee of parliamentarians to overturn the decision based by a medical task force, and albeit I see it as a very flawed medical task force, albeit I agree that I think they came to the wrong decision. However, I don't think it's the place of a bunch of elected parliamentarians to overturn or to try to overturn the decision of an expert task force. Just as it wouldn't be appropriate that we're telling farmers what kind of seeds to plant in the fields, or we're not telling roofers what kind of tiles to put on their roof, or telling airplane pilots how they should be flying their planes. There is, and we ought to be recognizing that there is a degree of expertise here that we do not have. I think the fact that we're coming down looking like we're telling them how they should be doing things, ordering them basically to go back to the starting table and to review the basic evidence. We are not better than they are at evaluating the evidence. So I don't like the way this is kind of twisted. I don't think it's appropriate that we're trying to dictate to a group of experts what they should and shouldn't be doing. I think this just ends up looking like a political exercise, and that we all disagree with their conclusion. But I think the right way to do it would have been to strongly recommend that they reconsider it. Hopefully they will. We've already put in process other measures to review this, and my understanding is that we've also looked at reviewing the way the panel is formed and decisions made by the task force. That the minister has already said he's going to do that. Anyhow, I think we would have been a lot better off leaving the original amendment. I think this goes too far, and I think nowadays everybody's an expert in everything. Everybody's an expert on the evidence. However, I think we all have to realize that we as parliamentarians are not experts in everything in life. And I think this has just gone too far. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Pelosi. Are there any further submissions with respect to the sub-amendment? Seeing none, are we ready for the question on the sub-amendment? The sub-amendment is simply to delete the word direct in the amendment and substitute for it the word urge. All those in favor of the sub-amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay. We only had one Liberal vote. Yeah. Ms. Goodrich, did you have a point of order? Oh, you want to speak on the amendment? Okay.
Monsieur le Président, il manquait des joueurs autour de la
Mr. Chair, we were missing people around the table when we voted.
Clear sense, it doesn't appear that people are paying attention. I would ask the clerk to conduct a recorded division on the sub-amendment, please.
Okay, on the sub-amendment to change the word direct to urge, Dr. Hanley.
So am I on? Yes.
Thank you. Madame Kayabaga?
Oui.
Merci. Mr. Nakvi?
Sorry,
On your on the sub-amendment?
we're voting on what, sorry?
We're asking you to vote on your sub-amendment.
Thank you. I was engaged in a conversation. I was having a sidebar. I do not appreciate comments that are, we're just all trying to do our job.
Please.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order. I think that we're in the midst of a vote here, not a
Point
debate.
of order, if he's going to comment on that, then maybe he should pay attention to what's going on.
Please, Mr. Nakvi, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Pulaski?
Or
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sidhu? Ms. Vecchio?
No. Sorry. I was just saying yes, that's my name. No.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vecchio. Dr. Ellis?
No.
Ms. Goodridge?
No.
Dr. Kitchen?
This is how it's done. No.
Monsieur Thériault?
Oui, je suis pour le terme exhorté.
Merci. Ms. Zerillo? Ms. Zerillo, yes or no on the amendment?
Nope.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 yeas, 5 nays. Sir?
There you go, Chair.
The chair votes in favor of the sub-amendment. The sub-amendment is therefore carried. And we're on to the amendment as sub-amended. So this is Ms. Zerillo's amendment with the word urge instead of direct. Is there any debate on the amendment as sub-amended? If not, are we ready for the question? Could we have a recorded vote, please, on the amendment as sub-amended?
Okay. Yes, sir. On the...
Monsieur le Président, il semble y avoir un...
Mr. Chair, there seems to be some confusion across languages. In French, we agree on the word exhorter, but we don't seem to be agreeing on the term in English, exhorter. Which is the right word in French for urge. So I'm having trouble understanding. What you're saying is that we will be replacing, what are we replacing? Yes, the word urge is the word for exhorter in French, and it's the same definition. Okay, but because we voted against that in English, didn't we? Urge is the English term.
Il y a des problèmes de je vais juste m'assurer que...
I just want to make sure that I'm voting as I wish, appropriately. So, you want to change your vote? No, I don't want to change my vote. I just want to, as you're stating it, And as it's translated, for me, the term exhorter, and that's the most effective term, so we should use exhort rather than urge in English. But I understand there's no equivalent in English, so this can't work.
OK.
It means the same thing in English to say urge as it means to say exhorter or inciter in French.
It's
Okay.
unwritten at the moment.
In order, regardless of the reason, in order for Mr. Theriault to be able to change his vote, it requires unanimous consent of the committee. Does Mr. Theriault have the unanimous consent of the committee to change?
J'ai pas envie de modifier mon vote, mais
I don't wish to change my vote, Chair, but you're calling a vote regarding which I would like, before I must vote, to hear an explanation and clarification.
Je m'excuse, Monsieur Theriault, j'ai mal.
I'm sorry, Mr. Theriault, I had misunderstood you. From what I understand, is that the translation of the sub-amendment does not use the word exhorter, but uses another word. In the original version, for direct, it uses ordonner. No, that's not it. But continue. Perhaps I'll see clearly. You called a vote. And in the vote that you called, for that vote, you indicated the word exhorter, or urge in English. And what would a better word be? To direct, but that's not what we want. Direct is what we're changing. I'm not trying to find the right word. I'm simply saying that the word exhorter, or urge in English, is what I would like. Then you call the vote. I just want to make sure that I indicated that urge is what I would like. So I'm not starting my vote again. But now you're calling another vote, I understand. So I want to make sure that we've got the right terms in English and in French for the vote you're calling again now.
So
the translation of the word urge in English is exhorter in French. Yes, indeed.
With going ahead with a recorded division on the amendment as sub-amended, please.
Okay. Dr. Hanley.
I support.
Madame Kayabega.
Oui.
Monsieur le Président, est-ce que vous pourriez au moins redire?
Chair, could we at least hear again the amendment? Could we reread it before we vote on it?
Okay. L'amendement comme sous-amendement.
So the amendment as sub-amendment is as follows.
After the word guidelines, comma, to insert the words, and so were a majority of the witnesses, comma, and to add at the end of the motion after the word lives, period, the following, and that the Minister of Health urge the task force to go back to the drawing board and revisit the guidelines based on the latest science, period, and that the Public Health Agency of Canada table to this committee the parameters given to the task force to update breast cancer screening guidelines. Are we clear on what we are voting on? That is the amendment as sub-amended.